Welcome to the Counselor tutorial for managing the report options within the Profession Report. We'll begin here within a patient visit and then specifically within the Profession Report tab. Then we'll scroll down to the bottom. Near the very bottom here, you can see there's a section called Report Options. This is a tool that enables you to highly customize how your final report will look and feel. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click here on Edit Options. And what that'll do is it'll display a whole series of options that you have. And many of these options have sub options, right? So there's a lot of flexibility here overall. Now, I want to point out at the very start of this that there are report layouts that can be saved as well. So instead of you having to configure this each time, you can set up layouts where you can say, hey, in certain scenarios, let's say pediatric evaluations, I want certain things to show up within the report options. When you change to that template, it'll realign. You can see there's now new options that are selected. The title's been changed, the font and the font size have all been changed, margin size have been changed, right? That can all kind of bundle into one go. So while we're going to talk mostly about how to change these for individual reports, it is important to note that you can utilize under administration, you can utilize a feature that will let you actually set this up. So under administration and then professional report, there's a section specifically for report options. Now, the report option templates are unique to each staff member. Okay, so if a colleague of yours has some report options set up, different templates set up, and you say, I really like that, you will need to go into, when you're logged in your own profile, go to administration, report options, and go ahead and set those up and save. And then right away, you'll see them in your list, and you can use those going forward. Okay. Now, anytime you make a change in this section, whether it's simply just making a quick change within one of these, or you change the whole, the entire layout, via a different template, you do want to make sure you click Save. That's another key thing I want to point out at this juncture, because once you make these changes, you want to click Save, and then that will update the PDF. If you make the change here and open the PDF right away or fax it right away, your changes would not have taken effect. Okay, so make sure you click Save. Now, to get down to the details of these sections here, of course, we can see, display Autogram, configuration, TIMPs, PTAs, etc., right? If you are, let's say, seeing a patient for a tinnitus eval, but you already did the audio at the previous encounter, or vestibular, or you're a speech pathologist or other therapist, and you don't need this, right? You don't need this information. Then, of course, you'd have a layout that removed all of that, right? So just and you also, of course, can set up your primary default to just do that, to not have this information included. Okay, that way it prevents you from having to do it each time. But if you do want this information, as I mentioned, you can dive into some details here within, for example, the Autogram. You can say, okay, instead of the image, let's use threshold data. Let's change the size or the right-left orientation if you have split Autograms, or do I want the masking thresholds, or do I want to display a normal range, right? So you can set a normal range, and every threshold better than this will be grayed, right? So if the patient's thresholds, I shouldn't say thresholds, each dB level better than this will be grayed out. So you can actually have a normal threshold curve right on your audiogram. Okay. Of course, there are other options. Tympanometry, you can decide whether or not the TIMP curve is going to be displayed. Okay. PTA, you can pick your specific PTA calculation. Once again, with each one of these, you might have different report layouts to say, hey, audio with TIMP displayed, right? Or however you want to describe that. But so it makes it really quick to say, hey, in these instances, this is what the configuration I want. Right, and you can go down the list, you can add, remove these as needed. There's options regarding the digital signature if you want to have a secondary signature. So maybe you have a student joining you, or it's there's two providers perhaps working with this patient. Maybe it's a pediatric patient. You can have a co-signed report then. You can also look at the report date, and there's some options there. You also can change the order of the report. So if you wanted to say, hey, maybe in most cases I want audio, history results or recommendations, but in this case, I want to flip this around. Maybe there's a specific physician that has requested that we change this around. So now we have results, audio, history, recommendations, right? Or maybe we move custom to the top. Whatever it is that you wish to add, you can do so very easily. And once again, then you'd click Save to lock in that change. And of course, there are other options regarding the title and how you want the date labeled. So in this case, as date of service, you can change the font here. Some of these tools you can also utilize if you have a report that maybe just barely rolls to an additional page. Like, oh, it's so close to being on one page. You of course could, decrease the font size. You could take the margin down to 0.2, and that's just going to buy you a little extra space to hopefully get it onto one page. Okay. Um, Ultimately, like I said, you can review these different options. You can pick from the preset templates whenever you're finished. You click save, and then you'll be able to see, as I mentioned, the updated reports. Now you can see we have results first and audio second, and then history, and then recommendations. Okay, and then you can continue to modify that as needed going forward if any changes come up. All right. Of course, if you have any questions about how to utilize the report options, please let us know. Give us a call, email, live chat us. We're always happy to help. Thank you very much for joining us for the tutorial on how to utilize the report options within the professional report.